Well, according to C Spire, it is 6:01, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. It's good to see everybody here for our Wednesday night prayer meeting. If you would, let's all stand and sing Sunshine in My Soul. Let's stand and sing. There is sunshine in my soul today, more glorious and bright than glows in any earthly sky. For Jesus is my light. Oh, there's sunshine, blessed sunshine, when the peaceful, happy moments roll. When Jesus shows his smiling face, there is sunshine in my soul. There is music in my soul today, a carol to my King, and Jesus listening can hear the songs I cannot sing. Oh, there's sunshine, blessed sunshine, when the peaceful, happy moments roll. When Jesus shows his smiling face, there is sunshine in my soul. There is gladness in my soul today, and hope and praise and love, for blessings which he gives me now, for joys laid up above. Oh, there's sunshine, blessed sunshine, when the peaceful, happy moments roll. When Jesus shows his smiling face, there is sunshine in my soul. All right, before you sit down, I understand somebody's got a birthday tomorrow. So I think we ought to sing happy birthday to our preacher. So let's all join together and sing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, God bless you. Happy birthday to you. Now you can be seated.
All right, as we begin a time of prayer requests, we'll look at illness and other needs. First, you see Aaron Gibson there is in red, and Jenny Johnson. Are there any other additions or updates in this category, illness and other needs? Okay. No updates there. We'll move over to cancer-related. You see in red that Angel Cook is on hospice care. Matt Davis is listed. And Mary Palmer and Alicia Wood. I have an addition. My sister, Jackie Sheehan, has had a recurrence of her cancer. Sheehan. Are there any other additions to cancer-related? That's Anita Hankins. Oh. Danita Hankins, that's Coach Hankins from the Wayne County High School football coach. His wife is undergoing surgery tomorrow, did you say? Undergoing surgery for cancer tomorrow. All right, any other additions? Okay, well, yeah, Rachel's here. How about that? That's a Thanksgiving and praise. All right, under surgery, test, and recovering, you see Aubrey Cook as Sharon's father, recovering from eye surgery. Richard, we've mentioned several times, pending heart surgery June the 13th. Michael Johnson recovering from a stroke. Rebecca Smith recovering from an automobile accident. And Joni Timberman is recovering after being in the hospital, so she's recovering at home. Are there any additions under surgery, test, and recovering? Okay, we can remove Kathleen Rivette. Okay, I see it. Any other additions or updates? All right. Okay, that's Michael Johnson that we mentioned, had surgery today to remove a clot from his brain. That was the cause of his stroke, so he needs our continued prayers. Michael Johnson. Okay, over to hospitals, you see Jimmy Messer at Singing River. Any other additions there? Okay. Frank Johnson has been moved to swing bed here in Waynesboro. Okay, Carolyn Walker, as Pat's mom, is supposed to have been moved Monday, did you say? Okay, so we think she's at Wayne General in the swing bed. Anything else under hospitals? Okay, we believe Kenya Smith has passed away. So remember that family, Smith family, down to bereavement. All right, and we'll go on to the bereaved. There is an addition there, Jerry Walters' family. Any other additions there? Yeah, I remember the name, not sure what category. Okay, so he's in remission then? Okay, so back in cancer-related Claude Music, he's doing well. All right, special prayer living assistance. You do see Maxie Bruce has been moved to a personal care home, Oak Grove Nursing Home. Under special prayer, Jess mentioned last week a veteran that he was aware of that was having complications from Agent Orange exposure, and we didn't know that name, but we still can remember him. And then church members in service, Jacob Harvey, we mentioned several times, leaves for basic training May the 28th. Are there any additions under any of those categories? Okay, nothing there. Brother Sean, would you lead us in prayer?
I got lots of pages. You may be here a while. I got lots of pages. No, ma'am, you do not have an outline, but I do. And it's lots of pages. I want to talk to you tonight. We're going to move out of the book of Nehemiah, and I just want to talk to you about Builders for Christ. That is a ministry of this church. We voted for it to be when Melanie and I moved here. And so Builders for Christ changed our name a couple of years ago because there is a national organization called Builders for Christ, and we're not a part of that. So we are now a fellowship of Builders for Christ. And so we still just call ourselves Builders for Christ, but had a little bit of a name change. We're going next week, May the 30th through June the 7th will be work days. We have people already committed from Oklahoma, Louisiana, 2 different areas of Louisiana, North Carolina, and several different places in Mississippi, and possibly somewhere else that I don't know about. But people coming from there. What we generally do is frame a building for a church or a ministry, and that's what we're set up to do. We have tool trailer set up for framing. We have electricians that come with us, and as soon as we get a wall up, they start pulling wire through it. And what we will typically do on the buildings that we work on is get there. When we get there, the slab will be on the ground. When we leave, the building will be on the slab. Blacked in, depending on how big the building is. Sometimes the outside's finished, sometimes sheetrock's hung. But on the bigger buildings, obviously, we just get the framing done. People with all skill levels will be there. There will be people that know could build a building from the ground up. There will be people that have never built a building of any kind. And all are needed. A lot of the people now are retired, but a whole bunch of people in the past and even now take vacation for the first week of June. They go ahead and sign up for it next year so that they'll be able to take off and come. In fact, we had one couple years ago that came on their honeymoon. They got married and came to Builders for Christ and then went somewhere else for a few days. And they come every year on their anniversary. So they were real young at that point. What we do is not a vacation. If you've been, people take vacation, but it's not a vacation. If you've been, we go to build a building, and we go to to get them a tool that they can use to reach their community or do whatever it is that God has called for them to do. The history of Builders for Christ, back in 1977 at State Boulevard Baptist Church, a small group, 8 or 9 people, went and helped work on a building. And the same week, a small group from First Baptist Collinsville, Mississippi, went and worked on a different building. And some of them got together before June of the next year, and they said, "Why don't we go together?" And so from that point, 1978, Builders for Christ was formed, and every single year, the first full week in June, that group has gone and helped build a building, helped work on a building somewhere until 2020. 2020 COVID year was when we didn't go anywhere. They've been all over the United States, Alaska, Montana. We've been to San Antonio, Texas, Unionville, Missouri, Kentucky. Pretty broad spectrum of places that we've been. Since Melanie and I have been here, most of the trips have been local. Most of them have been close by. We went to Enterprise first year we were here. We went to Chunky second year we were here. Third year we were here. We didn't go anywhere. Then we went back to Chunky to New Fellowship Baptist Church, helped finish it. And then last year we went to Norman, Oklahoma, and helped Mission Norman with that. The issues that we have are logistical mainly. Once we get there and get on the ground and start building, things kind of smooth out. But prior to that, there's a lot of logistical things that have to happen. Back in the old days, the 70s and 80s, first time Melanie and I ever went was 1986 to Tuttle, Oklahoma. And the group got too big to go 1 week. There were 22 people that were wanting to go. And so they said that was too many. And so we divided it up, and half went 1 week and half went the next week. And so, back then, 22 was a huge number. Now we've got over 100 signed up for this year. And so we will, 100 that have committed to be there, not the whole time necessarily, but a big part of the time. Start trying to find housing for, 50 people, because since we're local, a lot of people from here are going to travel back and forth. A lot of people from Meridian area, Collinsville, will travel back and forth and go home at night. But typically when we go off, we'll have 80 to 100, and trying to find a place where we can accommodate that many. And what we typically do is go in a church and bring air mattresses and cots and set up in Sunday school rooms. And the issues are, once we get that done, then we got to find a place to cook, because we do cook for ourselves. We bring our own cooking team. We buy our own groceries. The church doesn't have to provide that. And so we bring all of that, but we've got to have a place to cook. We have stuck a gas bottle outside the window, ran a line in the window, borrowed a stove, hooked it up inside, and cooked on that. We have been very versatile in those things. The other thing that's an issue is showers. You try to get 100 people showered in the evening before supper or before bed at least. That's a pretty good thing. So what we have done in the past is we set, all the showers. This year we're fortunate. We've got a guy that's providing a shower trailer, which is an 18-wheeler that's set up with 3 sets of 4 showers. And so it's a luxurious thing. We have built showers. We have brought a flatbed trailer in and just put up plywood and built shower stalls across there, hooked a hose up to a water heater sitting out on the trailer, and showered there. When we went to Grafton, West Virginia, we built 2 showers out in the yard, and we decided there wasn't any use putting a top on them, because if it rained, you were going to get wet anyway. Well, that was fine for 2 days. And then we got the building up, and the people were working on the roof. And the men at that time showered in the evening, and the ladies showered during the day. So Miss Lois opened the door and looked up, and she said, "This isn't going to work." And so we had to climb down and put a top on the showers. And so there are some logistical things. Feeding, we've divided up into cooking teams. There's a team that cooks breakfast. There's a team that handles lunch. There's a team that handles supper. There's a team that makes sure we're hydrated on the job, brings water around every few minutes. There's a team that does snacks on the job site. So every morning, every afternoon, there's a little break with all kind of snacks, watermelon and fruit and all kind of stuff, good stuff. So recently, like I said, we went to Enterprise in 2018. We went to New Fellowship Baptist Church 2019, 2021. We finished New Fellowship Baptist Church put the sheetrock in it, and almost finished it, built the stage and everything last year to Norman, Oklahoma. We will have a lot of families that come. We've got one family that was there last year that represented 4 generations. It was pretty cool. We've got several that are 3 generations. And so this is a family thing for us. However, it is a work site. And so, those who bring younger children kind of have to keep them out of the work area. For some, if there's supervision, an adult that's with them, parent or somebody that's with them, we let them get hands-on and let them actually do some of the building, and it teaches them. And, I think Jacob and Andrew have really enjoyed being a part of that, and I think the guys that have worked with them have enjoyed it just as much. And so that's kind of who we like to see. There'd be a lot of single, or not single men, but men without families there. There'll be a lot of ladies, several ladies that won't have families there. But for the most part, we are family oriented. And here's the deal: we get to see God work every year, because those logistical things don't just happen. A job that fits our group, fits into what we can do. That's the first thing that has to happen. And then when we find that, it has to be the right time, the right timing, because we set it a year in advance, and people take vacation, and so we have to find a job that not only fits our group, but fits our time. And then once that's done, we have to find a place to stay. And, sometimes we're building the building. There's not another building that the church has or the ministry has, and so we can't stay in their facilities because they don't have one. And so we have to find some, a church down the road or somewhere that will fit us, that has a kitchen that we can cook in, and things like that. Interesting, God always seems to bring the people that are needed for the job. In other words, the crew that comes, we don't ever know who all is going to be there, because we pick up people every year. And it seems that every time there's something odd about the building, God sends somebody that does that. And so, we've seen that over and over and over. But we've also seen Him work out logistical issues on a regular basis. Last year, I think I told you about the issues we had at New Fellowship, but last year we went to Mission Norman, and they told me at the beginning that out-of-town contractors usually come into Norman one time and then don't come back because of the inspection department. They are very difficult to get along with. And so when we started talking about bringing volunteers, 100 volunteers, 60 or so to work on the site, they started asking questions, the inspection department, and they wanted to have a Zoom meeting with me. Well, I got the plans one day, and they wanted to have the Zoom meeting the next day. And I'm just thinking we're just having a conversation. It's just going to be here's how we can work together. And that's not what it was. An hour and 15 minutes later, after they had grilled me over the plans, which I had gotten the day before, they wanted a specific timeline. They wanted to know what the credentials were for the people that were going to be doing carpentry work, for the ones that were going to be doing electrical, and just on and on and on. And we tried to explain to them who we were, what we were doing. Told them we worked fast, so we would need inspecting fast. If we go for a week and it takes them a day to get something inspected before we can cover it up, then we've wasted a lot of man hours. Throughout that phone conversation, they made it very clear who was in charge. They were in charge. And it was going to be according to their schedule, according to their way of doing. I got off the phone and I said, I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think it's going to work. Well, kind of moved on through all of that, and we got there. And when we got there, the first day before 8 o'clock, about 7:30, every one of the inspectors in the city was in the building. They said, what do we need to do to help y'all? If we need to, we can just leave one inspector here all day, and he can just watch all day, or we can come by 2 or 3 times. And if you come to something that you have to cover up, just call us and tell us and take a picture of it, and that'll be fine. And just, anything we can do to help is what we want to do. And I was like, how did that happen? Well, it just so happens that the mayor's wife was a volunteer at Mission Norman, and the mayor had told them they needed to cooperate. And so God works in whatever ways he chooses to work, and that was the way he chose to work, and it couldn't have been easier. There couldn't have been an easier inspection than what we did last year. And so we, as a group, have adopted a verse. Every morning we have a devotional. Prior to starting work, we eat at 6:30. We go on and get out on the job site after everybody's gotten kind of collected, and we all get there. We gather together inside. We have a devotional, and we post those verses up in the building somewhere and have a time of prayer. Let me just walk you through a day. When we get through with that, we go to work, and we start working. And when I say we, it's the people, the men and women who are working on the job site, those who are building. We work until 9:30, 10 o'clock, and there's a lady comes around and says, woo, whoop, and everybody hears her, and we stop, we go under a tent, and we sit down and eat some watermelon or drink some water, get up, go back to work till lunch. They have lunch there on the job site, and then we work afternoon, take a break, work till whenever we get through with whatever it is we're trying to get through with that day. And then we eat supper, and showers happen in there somewhere. And so that's typically a day for those that are on the job. For those that are cooking, however, since we eat at 6:30, there's a group that gets up at 4, and sometimes before that, and starts cooking. And so they cook and get everything ready. Then the lunch group starts putting their stuff together for lunch. The snack people go out to the job site, bring snacks and waters, and then a group starts cooking. In the meantime, somebody has to go to the grocery store a whole bunch. And so we have to call ahead to the grocery stores and say, hey, we're feeding 100 people. We need this much meat and this much, so it's important that we know who's coming when, so we get that done ahead of time. And so that's kind of what happens on a daily basis. The first day we use this verse, Jeremiah 32:27. Behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is there anything too hard for me? Behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is there anything too hard for me? That's an important question for us to answer. It's an important question for us all to answer or to understand the answer to it, because it determines how we approach serving Him. If we believe we've got to do it and we've got to make it happen, then we're going to be out there saying that job's not going to work. There's no way they'll get through with that, and so we're going to have to find another one. We can't do it. The inspections department's too hard. We can't do it for this reason or that or the other. But when we understand that God is the one who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above anything that we ask or can even think, then we just pray, and when He opens the door, we say, okay, and He makes it happen. He either makes it happen there, or He closes that door and opens another one. And so if understanding the answer to, is there anything too hard for me, determines how we approach it. We get to see God working in the building, in the housing, in the cooking, in the showers, in the team. And every year he shows us that there's nothing too hard for him. Absolutely nothing. So what's happening in Jeremiah 32? Well, Jeremiah 32 is when Israel had moved away from God. They'd moved away from God. They'd worshipped other gods, and God was sending the Chaldeans in to take them. And by this time, they'd already set up mounds around Jerusalem, siege mounds, and they had them shut in. And they were about to conquer Jerusalem. And God told Jeremiah to go buy a field. Told him to buy a field and fill out the deed and record the deed. Now, if your country's fixing to be taken, you think there's any point in filling out a legal deed that's legal in your country when you're about to be overrun by another country? And yet Jeremiah does exactly what God said, but then he asks. He said, basically, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You told me to do this, and yet you're sending the Chaldeans to come and take over. And at that, God said, behold, I'm the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is there anything too hard for me? And so Jeremiah is saying, what you're asking me to do is impossible. I mean, it's not that I can't record the deed, it's just that this would be impossible for it to mean anything. And God said, not really, because I'm God. I am Jehovah. Interesting, it starts off saying that the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah. When's the last time the word of the Lord came to you? Back then, he spoke through prophets. Now we have an advantage because he has spoken to us in his word. And so God has given us his word, so you can hear it now and you can go back and read it again. You can go back and hear it again. You can go back and read through it some more. And so God has given us some specific things that we look at them, we think, well, that's impossible. I mean, he's told us to be about making disciples. He's told us to take the gospel to the world around us and make disciples. He's told us to walk worthy of the calling with which he has called us. In other words, live. We've been justified, live like it. He's told us to work to become unified as a church in Christ. He's told us to build up the body of Christ so that we all come to understand what we believe and all come to live out what we understand and believe. He's called us to be different than unsaved people. He told us don't be anxious for anything. And now when you read all those things, you say, well, that's impossible. And God says, behold, I'm the Lord. I am the Lord. I am Jehovah. I am the Creator God. I am the Lord. You remember in Acts chapter 4 when Peter and James were arrested, they had healed the guy, and they got before the Sanhedrin. They told him, don't you be telling people about this name, Jesus. And they said, well, whether we obey you or obey God, you figure that out. Well, then they turned them loose, and they went back and they told all the people that were praying for them what had happened. And they said, Acts 4:24, so when they heard that, they raised their voice to God with one accord and said, Lord, you are God who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and all that's in them. And so they recognized, hey, none of this stuff's impossible. Nothing's too hard for God. They were arrested, not too long after Jesus was killed. And so very likely they could have followed in his footsteps, and yet God brought them back. They recognized, okay, you are the Lord. You are God. When Isaiah saw God, He saw him seated on his throne. When you read the book of Revelation, John saw him seated on his throne. Whenever we see God, we don't find him mowing the grass or plowing a field. We find him reigning, sitting on his throne. And so God is the Lord. But he also said, I'm the Lord of all flesh. Now stop and think about what that meant to Jeremiah. You know, they knew he was the Lord of Israel. Okay, for the ones that actually served him, but he was, he'd always said, you obey me, I'm your God, you're my people. But now he's using the Chaldeans to come in and take over. And Jeremiah says, I'm recording this deed, doesn't make a whole lot of sense because the Chaldeans are coming and they're going to be in charge then. And God says, no, I'm the God of all flesh. I'm the God of Israel. I'm the God of the Chaldeans too. I'm in charge of them. You know, it's interesting as you look through Israel's history, how God used other nations. He used Egypt to be an incubator for the nation of Israel as they grew and grew and grew and prepared them to go through to the promised land. He used the nations in the promised land to teach them to depend on him. Remember when they got there, they said, hey, they're too big. The cities are too fortified. We can't take them. Can't do it. And God told them, I'll go before you. And then 40 years later, that's exactly what happened. He went before them, and they were able to oust those nations. He used other nations to discipline them when they moved away from him. And they'd come in, defeat them. They'd cry out to him. He'd raise up somebody, and they would come back. And just before Jesus came, he used the Greeks. They conquered the world and brought a united language to the whole world. Everybody in the world pretty much could speak Greek. And so when Jesus came, the way was paved for the gospel to go to the whole world because everybody had a language that they could understand. He used the Romans to pave the way for peace. And so when Jesus came, and then after he died and the disciples were dispersed by the Romans, it was easy for them to go to every part of the world because they had built the roads, because there was peace, and God had used other nations, other people to accomplish his will. He used the religious leaders and the Romans to kill Jesus, to crucify him for the sins of the world. He used them to scatter the Christians all over the world. And so God is the God of the church, but he's also the God of the non-Christians. God's ways are not our ways, and he uses others in many ways. One of those is to cause us to serve him by reaching out to them. And so God said, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is there anything too hard for me? And the answer to that is, nope, not a thing too hard for God. For the one who created, for the one who spoke it all into existence, there's absolutely nothing that he can't do. There's nothing he can't do through Calvary Baptist Church that he chooses to do. And so if God's called us to make disciples, and he has, we can do it in his power. If God's called us to reach the world around us, we can do it in his power because he is the Lord, the God of all flesh, and there is nothing too hard for him. One year we were in Crosby, Mississippi, working on a building, and people were all over the place, doing the group over here, putting siding on, group over here, working on the roof, group over here, working on the inside of the building, pulling wire. And I was standing on the roof with a preacher, another preacher, and we're standing up there looking, and he said, how does this happen? You've got all of these people doing all of these different things, and this building is getting accomplished. A lot gets accomplished in a week. How does this happen? I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Nothing too hard for him. We have a clearly defined purpose in Builders for Christ. We exist to glorify God by providing a tool so the church or ministry can fulfill the mission that God has given them to do. That's what our mission is. Paul said, one thing I do. He was very focused. And the one thing Paul did was reach toward Christ and reach other people for Christ. And so he's called us to make disciples. You know, is what you're doing, are you doing anything to make disciples? Is what you're doing in your part of the ministry, is it making disciples? We also have measurable goals. Those measurable goals change a little bit each year, but our goal is to frame a building and pull electrical, or to build a building, finish the outside. Whatever it is, we have a goal that we can see and we can work toward, and we can see during the week whether we're getting there or not. As a church, it's kind of hard to have measurable goals. Our goal, how do you measure discipleship? Well, are so many people coming to Sunday school? Well, that could be an indication. Are so many people coming to worship service? That could be an indication. Are a bunch of people one-on-one meeting with other people and helping disciple them? That would be a pretty good indication. But it's kind of hard to define a measurable goal. That's something that we probably as a church need to pray about. Because if you don't have a goal that you're shooting for, then how you know if you hit it? And you don't. Another thing we do is divide the work into manageable parts. No one person builds the whole building. No one group builds the whole building. Everybody does a little part. And other group does a little part, and other group does a little part, and the building gets built because everybody has a part to play. In the church, everybody has a part to play. It may be out in front, and it may be behind the scenes. It may be prayer. It may be changing before next year. It may be something different this year or next year. Leaders. There's leaders on the job, there's workers. There's people that cut stuff, and there's people that bring them stuff. There's people that nail stuff, and there's also people that hold that stuff and bring stuff. The cooking teams, there's those that cook, and there's those that cut up, and there's those that do wash. And so all the jobs are divided up. Everybody does their part, and a lot gets done. Everybody has a part. And so the reason we call ourselves a fellowship of builders for Christ is because it's his ministry and he's in charge. That's the way it ought to be right here in the church. And God said, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is there anything too hard for me? And the answer is no. There's not. So let's do what he's called us to do. Make a difference in this community. Any questions? Comments? Yeah, she said there was one lady that one year, many times we say, well, what can I do? I don't know if I can even contribute. She stood at the sink and washed dishes all day long. And that was what she wanted to do, and she did it, and somebody else didn't have to. So,
I'll tell you another thing. You asked what can an 88-year-old woman do? The years that I went, I made potato salad, not potato.
Chicken salad.
Salad and pimento and cheese for the men at lunch every day. That was my job, to get that chicken salad and pimento and cheese ready for those ladies.
and we ate it up. If you like chicken salad, the chicken salad lady right there. And so at 88, she came to Builders for Christ, 88, 89, several times, and sat there and made chicken salad, pimento and cheese. Something you can do. Anybody else? Never too old to serve the Lord. That's right. Or too young. Let's pray. God, thank you that we have the opportunity to serve you. I pray that you open our eyes to how you would have us to do that. Lord, help us to see you for who you are, know you in a deep relationship. Lord, help us to not be scared to do what you've called us to do. Help us to understand that you are the God of all flesh, the people in the church, the people outside the church. And when you call us to go to people outside the church, Lord, we don't know how you've already been working in them. And so help us to be faithful to do what you've called us to do. And I pray it all in Jesus' name. Amen.